Government launches billion kina medium-term development plan. First responders to Air Niugini crash commended. And $500 million expected to be injected into PNG's economy.
This is the National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Sunday's news. Papua New Guinea's third medium-term development plan was launched in Port Moresby last night. MTDP3 details the government's plan to significantly grow the economy between 2018 and 2022. National Planning Minister Richard Maru says the government will invest 27 billion kina to fund the implementation of this plan.
In this exciting plan, PNG will witness improvement in the level of services provided to the people. The National Planning and Monitoring Minister says if funded fully, the plan will see transformation in rural districts and communities in the country. The plan will generate higher internal revenue to meet the growing demands and needs of the population.
I had the privilege to go to some of the most remotest parts of our country, and it is clear they are not receiving the health services nor the roads. They are not able to bring goods to market. So despite all that we've achieved as a nation over the last 43 years, I want to say from the outset, we have a long way to go. We absolutely have a long way to go. That is why Prime Minister is only fitting that the theme of the medium-term development plan is about inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
The government has changed the development cooperation policy to secure more funding from donors in national, provincial and district infrastructure projects on a kina-to-kina basis. The minister says the government is passionate about delivering much better development outcomes for the country.
Our biggest challenge is to find the funds to fund it. And Prime Minister, I'm sure with your support and my colleagues that are here tonight, we can fund this plan. And it will be the greatest transformation this country has seen in any 5-year term of any government. It will reach the cities, towns, the rural communities and the islands. And I have no doubt we will really build a solid foundation to propel the growth and prosperity of this country.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, who was there to officiate the launch, said the plan will guide the government to make significant progress and achieve development results. He appealed to all development partners to work with the government to build a better Papua New Guinea.
Today is a great day, and I want to thank Minister Maru. He's got a passion for this. We need to support him to making sure that we stay focused on the programs that we have out there. Without making sure that we are delivering them, we will be just going backwards. Our main aim is to make sure that our people get the services they want. They use that to make sure that they make a change in their life.
Minister Maru thanked the acting secretary and all hardworking staffs of the department who worked to complete the formulation of the plan. The minister is confident that through God's guidance, the plan will achieve its goal to secure our future through inclusive, sustainable economic growth. Rayon Lakingu, National EMTV News.
The third medium-term development plan will focus on major infrastructure projects in the country. Under the plan, the government will build 5 national highways and international wharfs.
The infrastructure projects in the plan include the redevelopment of the Islands Highway and the development of the Momase Highway, Central to Millen Bay Highway, Morobe to Gulf Highway, Baya to Medeng Highway and Gulf to Southern Islands Highway. They will also build new international wharfs in Wewak, Vanimo, Kikori and Manus, and redevelopment of the Najab Airport in Leh. National Planning and Monitoring Minister Richard Maru says the government will invest in key infrastructure projects to reduce the cost of doing business to unlock the nation's vast economic potential.
So I want to say this. We have heard the cries of our people. We have locked it in the plan. Prime Minister, this plan will cost us 27.2 billion to fund. It's an ambitious plan and it will cost us at 27.2 billion. How do we fund that? one might ask, how do we fund the plan? We have decided to write a new policy for our donor partners, which you will launch very shortly, Prime Minister, which now requires that 50% of all donor aid must go to infrastructure development, actual roads, actual bridges, actual schools.
The government will also invest in commercial agriculture to replace imports and increase exports, and to secure high-value outcomes to processing final products in the country. According to the plan, it will also create more jobs and generate income for the country.
We want our partners to understand we need you to fund our development plan. That's one way we'll see far better value and hopefully get a part of our plan funded. The other strategy we have pursued as government is to increase tax credit to 2% on average. We are going to launch that very soon. We're going to increase tax credit, and we hope to fund many of the big-ticket items using tax credit funds from our partners.
The plan will focus on improving service delivery in the districts through the district's development authorities by investing in rural hospitals, courthouse, rural police stations, and markets. Rayon Lakingu, National EMTV News.
Stunning video of U.S. Marines and locals from Chuuk in the Federated States of Micronesia rushing to rescue passengers and crew of the Air Niugini Boeing 737 aircraft is circulating on social media. Many viewers thanked the rescuers for their fast response, including Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, who expressed his gratitude in a statement. Meanwhile, in its latest media release, Air Niugini said the search for the missing male passenger continues, while the Boeing 737 aircraft has sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
This footage of U.S. Navy rescuers rushing to sinking PX-073 is being circulated on social media. It shows the quick response not only from the U.S. Marines but also locals from Chuuk. The video shows the Marines giving a thumbs up to the pilots as a sign of assurance that help has arrived. The U.S. Marines then continued into the aircraft to inspect before leaving with the survivors.
14 over there. Hey, yo. Hey. Crew on this side. Yes, side. Over here. 5 crew on this side. 5 over there. Yeah, it's going to be full jet fuel here soon. Yeah, we need to get out of this. Yeah, hop out. Go ahead. They got everybody. But yeah. There's one injured.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill in a media statement extended his gratitude to the Marines and the locals. Quote, Micronesian safety and security services were also swiftly on the scene and passengers were quickly assessed and attended to. We thank our Micronesian brothers and sisters for their response and care following this accident. End quote. An amateur footage of a passenger on the flight after the crash, Billy Janes, also shows him expressing his gratitudes to the rescuers.
Really impressed with the locals who immediately started coming out in boats. I mean, one would think that they might be afraid to approach a plane that's just crashed.
Well, I actually was out there when they first started going out there, and they were all moving very quickly.
They were awesome, and I was really impressed with the whole response.
Air Niugini, in a media statement, has said that U.S. Marines had dived to the sunken 737 and confirmed no bodies on the aircraft. While authorities are still searching for the missing male passenger, Air Niugini says eyewitness reports has said the passenger was sighted on one of the rescue boats. 2 of the 6 hospitalized passengers have been released, while the remaining 4 will be transferred to Guam for further treatment. Air Niugini flew in most of the passengers yesterday on a Fokker 70 and has said they will be assisting the passengers and crew with accommodation and other immediate needs and will continue to provide assistance to them over the coming weeks. Air Niugini Chairman Sir Costas Cosentino, in a separate media statement, also expressed his gratitude to those who rescued the passengers and crew. He also said that early reports indicated very poor visibility at the time due to bad weather as the aircraft came to rest in the water 145 meters from the runway. Sir Costas also thanked management and staff of Air Niugini in Port Moresby, saying they had the situation monitored and under control the whole time. Meanwhile, Sir Costas confirmed investigation by responsible authorities, and Air Niugini has already commenced to determine the cause of the accident. Adelaide Turks Kari, National MTV News.
And CNN today reported on Air Niugini's Boeing 737 crash. They also interviewed a U.S. Navy sailor involved in the rescue operation.
Welcome back. I want to show you this amazing video of U.S. Navy sailors rescuing people from a plane that crashed into a lagoon. This is in Micronesia. So the sailors were working in the area when a Boeing 737 went down just a short distance from the runway. This is on Friday. They used an inflatable boat to help local fishermen shuttle the 47 passengers and crew to shore. Meanwhile, the airline says a male passenger who had been reported earlier as missing was spotted afterwards in a dinghy, but they're still searching for him. The airline confirms that everyone got out of the plane safely. So you got onto your boat. Were fishermen already there at that stage?
Not yet. They were most of their boats were still in the small boat basin, and we were about a third of the way where we were working to the craft from the small boat basin.
So you were the first ones on the scene?
Yes, sir.
So the pictures that we're looking at, and I mean, honestly, I can't take my eyes off the screen. The plane is actually sinking. Is that what I'm seeing? Because the plane, the water is coming into the plane.
Yes, it looked like when we approached the plane, there was a buckle about halfway from the wings to the tail section, and the water was rushing in through there. And then by the time we got there, the water was about ankle to shin deep when we hopped onto the wing.
Did it seem to you like a situation where every second mattered because the water was coming into the plane?
Yes, we were afraid that it was going to rapidly start filling up, and it was going to go tail down, and the nose was going to come up, and it was going to sink right away. We just wanted to ensure that all the passengers and crew and the pilots were able to get out safely.
Tell me about the passengers that were then under your care.
So we started taking them out of the starboard side when they approached. As we were approaching, they opened the emergency exit door on that side, and we poked our head in and had people start to come out that way, because at that point everyone was trying to fit out the port side of the vessel. So we started yelling in, and then I believe we took either 6 or 7 onto our boat, and that was all the room we had. So we entered the aircraft and made sure everybody got out safely to the life rafts. And then 2 gentlemen, B2 farmer and C2 vet friend, went to the back of the plane and started to sweep from the aft galley forward and looking through each and every row of the aircraft to ensure that everybody was out.
Was anybody injured? How are they doing?
There were some injuries. Some were critical. I believe they got medevaced out of chute last night, I believe. I think around midnight, the Coast Guard medevaced them out. I'm not exactly sure where they took them though.
So what did they say? I mean, were you able to exchange words with them when you safely brought them back to shore?
No. So we once we swept the plane and we knew everyone was out, we got to our boat and took our boat full of passengers and crew to the small boat basin, and then we just immediately turned back around and went back out to make sure that there was nobody else out there floating in the water. And then we went to the airstrip and talked to the EMS personnel there.
Well, sir, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. Petty Officer John Monahan knows, and that footage is truly remarkable. 47 people who basically owe you, and the fishermen who came as well to the site of the crash, their lives. Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Here with National MTV News this Sunday. We will continue with more after these messages. Don't go away. Welcome back to National MTV News. Police in Manus are concerned over an increase in the number of female expatriates flying into the island province. Manus Provincial Police Commander, Chief Inspector David Yapu, said since the closure of the Manus Regional Processing Centre, police have recorded frequent visits by expatriate women to visit asylum seekers in Lorengau.
The frequent visits by expatriate women into Lorengau town has become a concern after police recently charged a woman from the United States for being in possession of drugs. Manus Police Boss Chief Inspector David Yapu says while there are no official complaints registered, the police are concerned because these women are seen talking and visiting the asylum seekers. There have been reports of these women traveling into Manus on tourist visas but are not visiting tourism sites. Since the closure of the Regional Processing Centre in Lombrum, there have been continuous reports of crimes allegedly committed by these refugees. Most are criminal in nature and include sexual abuse and assaults. Just last week, police raided the room rented by an expatriate woman and confiscated drugs. Meanwhile, PPC Yapu says, while police support the free movement of international visitors to Papua New Guinea, these visitors must comply with PNG laws. Thekla Gunga, National MTV News.
$500 million is expected to be injected into Papua New Guinea's economy over the next few days as a result of a successful issuing of sovereign bonds on the international market. Treasurer Charles Abel announced this late Friday afternoon. This is the first time PNG has successfully issued sovereign bonds on the international market and also opens up the possibility of the country's state-owned entities to also source international funding for their programs. In a first for Papua New Guinea, the country has successfully issued sovereign bonds on the world financial market, which will see much-needed revenue injected into the country's economy. According to Treasurer Charles Abel, the government had aimed to raise $500 million, which it did successfully. He said that whilst interest had reached a potential $3 billion, the government had decided to exercise prudent management and settle for the initial target of $500 million. In the end, 129 investors had been accepted to subscribe to the bonds, which will mature over a 10-year period at an interest rate of 8.375%.
Of course, we're asking only for 500 million, as you know, within a certain price range. So our bankers were talking about perhaps taking more from the market because there was so much interest. But we decided to exercise price discipline and volume discipline. And we said, no, we're going to stick to even though it's 7-8 times oversubscribed, we'll stick to the same volume and we just use the opportunity to renegotiate the price. So we negotiate, and we got the price down from 8.75% down to 8.375%.
Abel says initial funds from the bond issuance will go towards funding the 2018 national budget, as well as settling the country's short-term debt, domestic loans, as well as helping to clear the foreign exchange backlog.
It's a series of a number of reforms that we are bringing to make sure that our debt is stabilized, to make sure that our fiscal deficits are under control and trending back to balance, to make sure the foreign exchange situation is balanced, and we are fulfilling our commitments through the budget to continue to invest in all those critical areas of the economy that is needed and continue the economy driving forward.
The issuing of this sovereign bond also makes it easier for Papua New Guinea state-owned entities to go direct to foreign investors to seek funding for their own projects without having to seek a guarantee from the government.
Such as Kumul Mineral and Kumul Petroleum going forward, they can now also access the international financial markets because Papua New Guinea has benchmarked. In a sense, these are unknown entities, but because the government has gone out there and set a benchmark price and quantity and level of interest, that now when these entities want to go and access those markets as well, particularly
state-owned
and our state-owned enterprises, now we don't need to underwrite them all the time.
With a 10-year period for this bond, the government is confident it can ride on the impending revenue that is expected to be received from major resource projects over the next few years, among them the Wafi Golpu project, Papua LNG, and the expansion of the PNG LNG project. Here with National EMTV News this Sunday, we go for a break now. When we come back, we take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now, the search is still on for survivors of the powerful earthquake and tsunami that struck Indonesia's Sulawesi island. More than 400 were killed Friday and hundreds more are seriously injured or missing. The country's disaster management agency says many victims are still buried under the rubble of houses and buildings. The devastation goes on for kilometers, and with power and communications down, it's not going to improve anytime soon.
Sitting on the ground outside, a woman cries, panicked and rattled. Another aftershock has just struck in Palu, Indonesia. Others run onto the street, scared to remain indoors. Body bags line the road nearby. Some of the hundreds killed since Friday's massive earthquake, made worse by the subsequent tsunami. Videos captured the scene as the massive wave hit. Homes, buildings, cars, and roads, all swept away by the tsunami about 3 meters high. A before and after image shows the force of the wave and the quake crumbling a steel bridge. Survivors are now combing through the vast wreckage left behind, looking for their belongings or for loved ones. The Indonesian president says he's sending military to help with search and rescue operations, hunting for survivors among the chaos and destruction, further complicated by downed power and phone lines all over the region. Makeshift hospitals desperately try to help all those wounded. One medical center so badly damaged, staff are treating people outside, with sparse resources, working to prevent any more lives being lost, though officials warn the death toll could continue to climb. For Indonesia, the tragedy has become all too familiar. On the island of Lombok, further south, an August earthquake killed more than 430 people, leaving a country reeling and shaken.
The deadline for Brexit is just 6 months away, and with both the European Union and Britain upping their no-deal preparation, the stakes couldn't be higher at this stage. This CNN report explains the big gamble by Britain.
Britain took a gamble when it chose to leave the European Union, staking its independence against a less certain future. And with only 6 months to go, there's all to play for. The referendum was 27 months ago, and the future is as uncertain now as it was then. One thing is for sure, both sides are running out of time. So much so, there's growing concern in Britain about a blind Brexit, paying over the £39 billion divorce bill to the EU without knowing exactly what Britain would get in return.
We don't really know what's going on with it. It feels just really up in the air.
If it's this messy, what is going to happen when we leave?
It's just crazy because nobody knows where we stand at the moment.
Bingo depends on probability and chance. Just like Brexit, you need to hit several targets to win. Theresa May says the UK must respect the result of the referendum. That means leaving the customs union, single market, stopping free movement and ending vast sums of money going to the EU. Both the UK and the EU have committed to avoiding a hard border in Northern Ireland. And the EU maintains that Brexit must respect the integrity of its single market. Get all three? Bingo. Brexit. And what are the chances of that? It's hard to see how Theresa May has the numbers to get any deal she's likely to get with the EU through Parliament. And if she can't get it through Parliament, or she can't get the deal in the first place, or she's replaced by a leadership contest or a general election, then... all bets are off. And even a second referendum could be on the table.
Britain's first F-35B Lightning fighter jet has landed on the deck of the Royal Navy's aircraft carrier. UK's Defence Secretary says the largest warship in Britain's history is joining forces with the most advanced fighter jets on the planet.
it's been mocked as the aircraft carrier without planes. But Britain's most expensive warship has, at last, met its match. The F-35 jet, the world's most advanced and costly warplane. Now together for the first time, sailing in the Atlantic Ocean.
It's 8 years since a jet flew off a British aircraft carrier. Now the wait is over, and the Royal Navy is back in the business of flying fast jets from big decks.
The F-35 can hover like the old Harrier jump jet, but it's far more complex, with 10 million lines of computer code. Each costs around £100 million. Now landing on a £3 billion warship. It's global ambition, not affordability, that's been the driving force. These 2 test aircraft are meant to be followed by many more. The ship was built to carry 36 jets. But in reality, she'll sail with fewer. Britain's defence budget is struggling to match its ambitions. But the warning from the bridge is clear. Fewer jets means less influence.
It is a lot of money, but absolutely we must take security of our people and our home country and our obligations around the world seriously. You just cannot do defence on the cheap. Won't get through, throw lemons at people.
The government hopes this carrier and these jets will help project British power across the globe. But in truth, it may struggle to keep those ambitions afloat.
Back home now, and Commanding Officer of the 1st Royal Pacific Islands Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Boniface Aruma, is pleased with the level of training his soldiers have undergone in the last 12 months. The training is in preparation for the security of the 21 world leaders who will attend the APEC Leaders Week in Port Moresby in November.
The 1st Royal Pacific Islands Regiment is heading the PNG Defence Force security preparations in support of the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary. The APEC security operations is considered the biggest joint security operation, which will be executed by all law enforcing agencies, with police in the forefront. Since the start of the year, soldiers from 1RPIR have undergone numerous phases of training to reach the level of performance they are now at. Commanding Officer of 1RPIR, Lieutenant Colonel Boniface Aruma, has acknowledged the support given by the Australian Defence Force toward the preparation and is pleased with the outcome of his soldiers' performances.
Our soldiers are very adaptable and are very capable, and they have been able to pick up, whatever training that has been given to them from our 1RAR support from the Australians. Are very quick to pick up, very quick to absorb, and very quick to, effect it. And not just effecting it for the sake of doing it, but effecting it with utter confidence and competence.
The unit is into the 6th phase of its preparations. The other exercises include vital asset protection, road checks, and the use of firepower. Ted in charge of the PNG Defence Force, Colonel Sialediro, is also confident that PNGDF will provide the support that police will need to ensure PNG hosts a safe and secure APEC.
All of our elements who will be supporting have been trained. They've reached the culmination of their training at the right time, and very soon we will be concentrating them here in Moresby to be stood by to support the police. And this will happen next month, and indeed by November, early November, when our leaders, when our guest leaders from the other APEC economies arrive, we will be ready.
And on an individual level, the skills the soldiers have acquired will prepare them for other events of national security after APEC. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
With the news this Sunday, Trukai Sports is next. We'll preview the NRL Grand Final between the Melbourne Storm and the Roosters. And the New South Wales country team arrives to take on PNG under-23. We'll have the details after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with Rugby League, and the availability of Cooper Cronk for tonight's NRL Grand Final will remain a mystery right up until kickoff. The Rooster Star is desperate to face his old club, the Melbourne Storm, in Sydney, but a shoulder injury means he hasn't trained all week.
If anyone knows how Cooper Cronk is feeling, it's the Roosters' Kiwi forward Isaac Liu. He was dropped on game day in 2013, the last time Sydney won a premiership. A bittersweet moment. His victory too, but his chance to play a final could have gone for good.
After that year, I was thinking, wonder if we're ever going to get there again.
But Liu is back with a shot at the trophy. Growing up in South Auckland, he never dreamed of this. The boy from Otahuhu became a man in Sydney, and he knows how rare these chances are.
To be a part of it this year and to actually make it, and to know that I'll be out there on the field. It's exciting and I can't wait for it.
Half the Roosters' forwards are Kiwis, with Siosio Tokiaho and Jared Wairea-Hargreaves. Together they form a fearsome pack.
Yeah, super proud of Ice, mate. He works very hard.
But going after them are familiar faces. Between the Storm's Bromwich brothers, Brandon Smith and Nelson Asofa Solomona, there are 9 New Zealanders in tonight's grand final, a record for a year the Warriors don't play. It's a clash of the Kiwis in the middle of the field.
Is there anyone in that team that you're lining up for a bit of a welcome hit at the weekend?
Not really, mate, just anybody.
Whoever's in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, Liu will see it up close.
The New South Wales country team to take on the PNG residents under-23 side arrived in Port Moresby this afternoon. The inaugural match will be played on the 13th of October at the National Football Stadium.
Their arrival will see both the PNG under-23 residents team and New South Wales country team take part in different community engagements in the lead-up to their match. This inaugural match will be played annually, with many players in the country given the opportunity to showcase their skills.
Milestone event for Papua New Guinea Rugby League, in that for the first time we are able to put together a representative side comprised of purely local talent. Our Papua New Guinean boys playing in our premier competition, the Digital Cup. And at the PNG RFL level, I want to acknowledge the work put in by CEO Reatau and his team to negotiate this 5-year agreement with the New South Wales Rugby League.
The New South Wales country team is one of the best in Australia, having beaten international teams like Samoa and Scotland.
This year they come here. Next year our boys get to travel to New South Wales, so the program is locked in for 5 years. Beyond the partnership with the New South Wales Rugby League, this is a concept we want to grow. We will look at other competitions for our residents team going future. So this year they get to play 1 game, but next year the team will be traveling to New South Wales for the return match, and we are looking at growing the competition with probably 1 or 2 more games for the format going forward.
This program helps develop the game of rugby league in the country. They will be looking at all players playing in the country, primarily from the Intercity Cup. It also creates a pathway for players under the age of 23 playing in the Intercity Cup competition.
The PNG RFL has had complete faith and confidence in the leadership provided by Chairman Adrian Chow and the management team behind our national competition, Stanley Ondina. What they've done in the last 2 years to transform the competition gives us confidence.
Elijah Lavette, National EMTV Sports.
To touch football, and 11 teams are competing in the Central Touch tournament that's now into its knockout stages. The matches have been played in 4 different divisions: the juniors, under-18, open men's and women's, and open mixed.
With 4 sports up for grabs in the final, the competition saw its knockout round played in all 4 divisions from juniors, under-18, open and mixed, with winners to proceed into the final playoffs in a fortnight. Currently leading the scoreboard in the junior division is Stallions, and in the open men's division is Mustangs, and leading the open women's division is Stallions, while in the open mixed division Mustangs are leading. The Central Touch competition has been running for over 2 decades and has been played in various locations in the city. Teams taking part in the competition are from 8 and 9 Mile, Gerhu, Hohola and other areas within Port Moresby. Defending champions Mustangs, who kept the title for 7 years, are hoping to retain their win again this year. Interested teams willing to take part in the competition are urged to register for next season. Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues after these messages with some updates in golf and football overseas. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To golf now, the Americans will have to pull off a comeback to rival the 2012 Miracle at Medina if they are to retain the cup in Paris. The visitors are trailing 10 leading into the final day, as Europe created more history courtesy of a duo they're calling Mollywood.
It does strange things to people. Some crumble, but others, like Tommy Fleetwood, thrive.
This doesn't look bad.
Fleetwood, the Ryder Cup rookie who's playing like an old pro.
Tommy taking dead aim as usual. My goodness.
But the Ryder Cup is a team competition, and when playing partner Francesco Molinari is also pulling off the improbable, the opposition has a serious problem.
And there goes Frankie.
The Mollywood combination is the first European pairing to win 4 matches out of 4. Fleetwood, the first European rookie to win 4 in a row.
A little bit emotional right now, actually, and we're only on Saturday. We were really good this afternoon, weren't we? We played really solid. We played really well, but yeah, to have your own little piece of history together is very special.
On the other side of history is Tiger Woods, who's lost all his matches to the duo.
Pretty pissed off the fact that I lost 3 matches and did feel like I played poorly. That's the frustrating thing about match play.
The only Americans doing well so far are Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. They provided 2 of Team USA's 3 points of the day.
Yes, well done, Jordan.
Their celebrations perhaps a little over the top for a team still trailing by 4. Although when it comes to celebrations, it's hard to beat Rory McIlroy, who well and truly silenced his sledger in the crowd.
Who can't talk? Who can't talk? I can talk. I can talk.
That kind of passion is exactly what America don't want to encourage in the Europeans in the singles matches.
And that ends Trukai Sports for this evening. We go for a break and be back with the weather details for Monday. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Port Moresby, Daru, Kerma, Alotau and Popateta can all expect fine weather. To the Momasa region, morning showers expected in Wewak, fine weather expected in Lae, Wau, Medang and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, Lorengau, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka can expect fine weather as well. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, all these major centers can expect mostly fine weather over the next 24 hours. There is a strong wind warning forecast for small ships. Southeasterly winds of 25 to 34 knots are expected to continue for the next 24 hours, causing rough sea. All small craft and boats are advised to take the necessary precautions before and going out to sea. To look at the forecast for small ships, waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island, to Kerma, Yule Island, Hood Point, Samurai Island, and with waters of Samurai Island to Cape Vogel, to Finchafen and East and West New Britain, seas 2 to 3 meters. Waters of Eastern and Western Milne Bay Islands, and waters of Finchafen through Vitias and Dampier Strait to CSE Island to Long Island, seas 2.5 to 3 meters, and waters of Long Island to Medang, Bogia, Wewak, Aitape, Wanimo, and northern PNG Indonesian border, and waters of Manus and its western group of islands to New Island, and waters of New Britain to Bougainville, seas 1.5 to 2 meters. And a look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. Coral Sea, seas rough to very rough with southeasterly winds at 34 to 48 knots. Solomon Sea, seas moderate to rough with southeast to southerly winds at 20 to 34 knots. Bismarck Sea, seas moderate to rough with southeasterly winds at 20 to 34 knots. And the Pacific Ocean, seas slight with south to southwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
Before we go, plastic pollution is becoming a major problem in Papua New Guinea. With climate change issues affecting the world today, plastics will be banned in Papua New Guinea starting November next year. Minister for Environment and Conservation, John Pundari, reiterated his stand on the ban last week.
Towns and cities throughout Papua New Guinea are filled with plastic waste lying everywhere. Port Moresby has taken the step to put a stop to that by carrying out the Coastal Plastic Waste Cleanup Campaign. Minister for Environment and Conservation and Climate Change, John Pundari, says Papua New Guinea must not be afraid to remove plastic shopping bags from markets in the country because their destruction to the environment and human lives far outweighs its economic benefits to the people and the country. The minister said the campaign is a small but significant step forward towards effecting the ban. Come November, the government will ban imports, manufacturing and the use of all plastic bags in PNG. During a discussion with UPNG Geography Professor Graham Sam says the temperature in PNG is slowly rising.
Whatever we do here on the surface of the earth, it contributes to the global emissions of greenhouse gases, which cause the warming of the surface. It results in increases in temperature. In the Papua New Guinea case, since records began, the temperatures have increased substantially over the last 50 years. Since 1950, the temperature has been increasing by about 0.11 degrees per decade.
With a rising temperature like that, human beings won't feel its effect now, but plants and animals will, and eventually it will affect humans.
Up to 2030, the temperatures are likely to also increase by about 0.4 degrees to 1.0 degrees. So that's quite significant in terms of temperature. And this is consistent with the global average surface temperatures around the globe. Most of the globe is experiencing temperature increases, and some of these influenced by local factors.
The initiative to stop plastic pollution will also help a lot in minimizing climate change and reducing temperature in Papua New Guinea. Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
And that ends National EMTV News this Sunday. On behalf of the EMTV News team from right around the country, pleasant viewing. Have a safe week. Good night.